Check one. Man, that thing's not moving at all. Let's see. I think it is now. Let's see here real quick. Might as well look on my own levels. This thing is not being trustworthy. I don't care one way or another. I really don't care at this point. What does it matter? Audio levels, please. Man, to think of some little shy, calm, be it arrested development idiot enjoying nothing more than messing with my levels. It's kind of sad. I don't know. Let's see. I will get a level. I will get a level check. It will happen one way or another. Let's see. Open volume mixer. And looks all right. Little tech. Let's see. Okay, it's working. Screwing with me, but it's working. I apologize for the sloppy, hastefully 3-minute intro. I'll put something in the title as to just go to minute 3 from the beginning, but it looked like the audio wasn't. The interface here is not showing me any type of viable information, so I had to go to my own sound settings and see what's going on. But YouTube doesn't want me broadcasting. I don't know why. I don't know what it is YouTube thinks I'm going to do that's going to matter at this point. I just wanted to tell some stories and talk a little bit, have some fun. Let's see here. I'm 44 years old, which makes me a Gen Xer. Makes me a young Gen Xer, but not a millennial, right? So often differences between the Gen Xer, not to say there's not these type of Gen Xers out there, but the difference between the Gen Xers who are still alive, which there's not many of us, and the millennial generation is pretty much communism. Like most I'm not saying there's not Gen Xers who are still alive. I'm sure there's. So you probably find some Gen Xers in the hospitals that have slaughtered their way up to some really good positions. I'm not saying we don't exist, but I'm just saying the millennials are communist in the United States. Just get it. Just accept it. I mean, it's not their fault. They were indoctrinated into it. It wasn't the fault of the Soviet Union folk who were indoctrinated into it. It wasn't the fault of the Mao Zedong Great Leap Forward people who cannibalized and ate each other because they were taught insanity. These people were just unfortunate individuals in very, very bad and evil circumstances, as George Soros was quoted as saying. There's nothing he believes he could have done to stop the volume of evil that was coming his way when he made the decisions he had to make that set the chain of events in motion that made him as wealthy as he is. And those events are still, same type of events are in motion to this day. Those of you who know what I speak of, more power to you. Those who don't, take my word for it or don't. I don't care. So, let's see. Present blade. Just something has to be done. So, what else? Okay, Ice Road Truckers, man. There's a show. It's still around. I mean, once you get these syndicated series, they're around on DVD or, you know, Google Play, whatever the hell Google's calling itself these days. I just call Google China. But it was called Ice Road Truckers. Now, this show was unhinged, but it had a very surreal aspect to it. I'll try and summarize quickly because it's kind of cool. Right? These men would drive 18-wheeler rigs, diesel rigs, as we conventionally know in the United States. Big rig, 18-wheeler, right? They would drive these rigs with massive loads that we would not allow. Well, we probably would now because we're in a failing economy, but failing state as a country. But we didn't used to allow these massive, like 8, 10 ton plus loads of just massive pharmacological equipment to be transported on the road because it would just rip through the road. And then, anybody driving behind these individuals would be in some unfortunate luck in their minivan or in their Dodge Ram, what have you. So, getting to the meat of the story, I'm trying to be fun and festive tonight, because I want, to try and spread some love in these trying, horrible times. Lord knows, I will be reading from the Bible a little bit later. We need more of that. But so these men, I think the show was about maybe 6 to 8 of these individuals. I think they switched 2 of them out through the season of these 8 men. These men drove with their 18-wheelers massive tons of equipment that was not safe for a road, let alone the frozen beds of Arctic ice lakes that they drove these loads across to in the right time of the year where it had to be cold enough so they could get this equipment out there. Obviously, they weren't going to drop it in with a helicopter, right, or fly it in. It's the only way you could get this equipment there. These guys are fearless. They were fearless, right? Hopefully, some of them are still alive. I think this show is pretty much through around the 2005 to 2015 circa. So we're talking. I often prattle on about old stuff as I'm an older individual, though I don't consider myself to be old and ancient. Different strokes for different folks. We're living in trying times, right? So maybe I am ancient to some of you, but what do men whom know if they make any slightest margin of error, pulling massive tons of steel and iron behind them over a frozen lake bed to their destination? What did those men fear? Because I was watching, I was curious. I didn't want to see them afraid, right? Though I couldn't help but notice that all of them had their different methodologies of coping with the anxiety they were experiencing. This show was filmed up in Canada. I think a lot of it was like, oh man, up there towards your more Nordic area, like Nova Scotia. I think a lot of it was in Nova Scotia. So, what do men whom know if they make the smallest mistake, they will sink into a oceany death or a watery death with tons of equipment behind them and no one's coming after them. And that's what they signed up for. What did those men fear? Because they didn't seem to fear that. They seem to have all attained, and there was a woman amongst them, but they seem to have all attained this level of contentment. Many of them are Christians, but that's not what I'm talking about. Many of them had attained this level of contentment with their situation and just accepted it, right? However, so I'll say that again. Many of them had just accepted the fact that the job was what it was. That if they went off one of these cliffs or they went through the lake bed or whatever it was, these tirelessly brave ice road truckers, that would be the end of them. And that's that. They accepted that. However, there was one thing they feared. One thing. It got my attention because I mean, it's like, when people when people who have that job have a fear, you kind of bookmark it. Maybe I'm just a crazy person. I mean, if I was in a mock jet with somebody breaking the sound barrier for the first time, right? And I'm checking the mental box in my head of all the crazy things these people don't have a fear of, but noticing the one thing it is, whatever it is, I don't think most people would be like, "Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have known." I think most people would be like, "Yeah, I would have definitely been doing it." So with these ice road truckers, their one fear up in Nova Scotia, Canada, and the Northern Territories was, get ready for it, going to the hospital. They were so terrified of being subjected to the medical professionals back then. Not You can probably imagine what they're like now with dictator Trudeau, right? But back then, right? Think about that. Think about the cray cray involved, right? I mean, 10 plus tons of steel behind these ice road truckers, ready to take them to certain death, no holes barred, just certain death like that. And they made peace with it. But at the very thought of having to be taken to a hospital, they freaked out. Right? That caught my attention. Like, what is it with Canadian healthcare that's just so bad? Like, what are they doing up there? Like, what's up? What's up with that socialized healthcare in the period of between 2005 and 2015 in the history of the world that I speak of? Well, it must have been something bad. I mean, you can come to your own conclusion about that. I don't know. I'm not a genius. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm definitely probably not as smart as, pray tell, as the people who are viewing this video ever in any circumstance in this universe ever. I'm just not as smart as you kind folk. But I'm curious if a bunch of ice road truckers, a syndicated show that you can watch and purchase and enjoy at your leisure at any point, up to the point that you will inevitably meet the same fate that these folks did in the hospitals. These insane people have and had one of the most hard and hazardous jobs known on this planet, right? Next to being shot into the sun or something, right? And they made peace because most of them are Christians. But they all had a legitimate paranoia, and that was being subjected to a socialized medical system where they knew they would be exposed to barbarisms far worse than a watery, immediate, what we call immersive grave. Caught my attention. Could be wrong, could be insane. Would you guys like to pray now? Hey, I pray for people in China. I understand Google's owned by China. The butterfly is, I'm sorry, not the butterfly, the dragonfly. Sorry, American, made a mistake. The dragonfly is a symbol in the Chinese culture of mourning somebody who lost a loved one. It's pretty common. So I read. I'm not Chinese, but I try and speak to whom operates and runs Google, and that is the Chinese. So a lot of Americans haven't figured that out yet, but a lot of Americans are sitting in hospital beds thinking they're going to get care, not murdered. So figure that out. This is Revelation 4:2. The latter half of chap 3. We're going to go, let's see here. We're going to go 16:21 here. So then, because thou art lukewarm, warm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Right. So I think we can go ahead and translate that into spit thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich and interested with goods and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I counseled thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that thou shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou may see, and many as I love, I rebuke, and chasten be zealous, therefore I repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any men hear my voice, open the door, and I will come to them and will sup with him, and he will be with me. So I wrote that down, at least the chapter that I wanted to. In America right now, we have this division with Christianity that blows my mind, but it really doesn't if you look at history. Nothing that is happening in the United States right now, based on my age group, right? Because I'm 44, I'm a Gen Xer. We've seen everything. We've talked to the generations. We've seen the things that our generation is often assumed to have not seen. I know about the swine flu. I know that we've done COVID in the 70s because my grandpa told me, and my grandma told me, and my aunts and uncles told me, and a lot of people told me, about the horrors of the swine flu and how they cut the injections off at like 25 people on the books, but millions of people died internationally, right? And how they're running the same gambit right now. Surprise, surprise. Oh, I know that. Because I know that information, I'm probably not going to survive. And I understand that. It's a pain in the ass when people actually have relatives who've lived through real history. Well, plus we got the Muslim Brotherhood out there and these things called Ashkenazis, thanks to George Soros. Muslim Brotherhood, Ashkenazis, right? Something that's just manifested to the past 15 years thanks to the Barack Obama administration and George W. Bush and all of his douche nozzlery. So, I mean, yeah, thanks to that, we have, you know, uh, two different classes of different tribalistic people who are diametrically opposed to each other. I don't identify with either. I'm not a Muslim Brotherhood, and I'm damn sure not a Nazi. I'm an American, Ashkenazi, whatever you guys are calling yourself these days. It's sad that you guys have fallen into this identity politics paradigm, and maybe it's just the New World Order now, but it's sad because America had attained something we hadn't seen before. The greatest experiment ever achieved sociologically, as far as I'm concerned. And you guys spit on it. You spit on the ancestral grave of every person who ever fought for this country. Doesn't matter color, creed, nationality, race, or religion. They all fought. You can look at World War I and World War II gravestones and see you can see Muslim, right? You can see Judeo. You can see Christian. You name it. If it's you see Buddhism, you can see Hindu. You'll see them all in those graves, right? We're falling for the same stupid identity politics shit the Soviet Union was exposed to and collapsed with because the czars wanted to rule, which probably would have been better. It was serfdom, but neo-feudalistic serfdom via communism obviously was a lot worse. I speak of the starvation famine. It's disgusting, It is what it is. People die for lack of knowledge. People die for lack of knowledge.